Iguodala to Curry, back to Iguodala, up for the layup. Oh, blocked by James. Curry, one-on-one. Irving puts it up. It's good. Kyrie Irving from downtown. The three, steps back, crossover, puts up a three. Rebound James. Second. It's over. It's over. Cleveland is a city of champions once again. The Cavaliers are NBA champions.
Cleveland! This is for you!
What's up, everybody? How we doing? And welcome to a not so fun Friday afternoon version of the Block the Shot the Stop, our Cleveland Cavalier podcast, brought to you by the wonderful people at the Blue Wire Podcast Network. I'm Tim Daniel. This is Kevin Lynch, as always. And Kevin, there is no Viva Las Vegas for the Cleveland Cavaliers during the 2024-2025 season.
There is not. Quick turnaround for the Cavs from the best team in the NBA to not even going to qualify for the NBA Cup. Life comes at you fast, I guess.
Yeah, life comes at you fast for sure. So with today's loss by a final of 117-101 to the Atlanta Hawks, the Cavaliers are now eliminated from advancing to quarterfinal rounds in the NBA Cup. The Hawks, I think, if the Bulls win tonight against the Celtics, I think the Hawks may clinch the group, if I have that correctly. So good on them, I guess. But just not a good game by the Cavs today. And we're going to talk about a couple things, obviously, that would jump out. But the first thing is, obviously, to me, the Cavs' inability to knock down shots today was very shocking. And if you look at the numbers, I think they shot all right. I don't think they were taking bad shots. It just felt like it just didn't want to work today. I mean, the assist numbers alone are the difference between the two teams is mind-boggling. And I don't think that's the Cavs weren't sharing the ball by any means. I just think that they weren't knocking shots down. The Hawks were plus 12 on them and assists in this game.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think the Cavs seem to run fairly similar to their normal offense. They were definitely sharing the ball. I would say they weren't hitting shots and they weren't getting the best shot either. Quite a lot of times. I mean, you saw several like off balance threes. I mean, three point shooting again was a real Achilles heel for the Cavs. They shot under 30% tonight on threes. They did shoot a more controlled number. They shot 38 overall after shooting, I think, 50 the other night, that's normal high for the NBA instead of crazy high. But they, just did not. Everything. You're right. A lot of it was definitely shot making and shot selection that I really think did them in tonight. More so than the other night, we really focused on the defense. I didn't think the defense was great, but I didn't think it was terrible either. Yeah. And I guess I'll just throw that's out there that my number one thing, I think you're right on with the shot selection, but the number one thing I wrote down was the bench. The Cavs bench has outplayed the other team's bench virtually every game this year up until the last two. Tonight they got outscored 50-28 in bench points. All but two of those coming from three guys on the Hawks who should arguably be starters anyway. But yeah, that was, I think you're right on with the just not hitting shots. And I think I'm also right on with the bench getting outplayed, which has not happened this year.
Yeah, DeAndre Hunter was awesome again today for Atlanta. Back-to-back games. He was terrific. Going against his college teammate, Ty Jerome, doing him like that, that's not fair. But yeah, I think that really jumps out specifically. The other thing, too, is I know the Cavs had more offensive rebounds than the Hawks today, but it feels like they still weren't getting enough rebounds they needed. So Atlanta out-rebounded them 53-40. 14 of that was defensive rebounds, but the Cavs not really clashing the glass as much. Getting 5 shots blocked and having no shots blocked on their own when they have Mobley and Allen, that's a rarity. That's not going to happen all that often. So that's not something I'm really worried about. But some of the other things that really kind of jumped out to me.
Well, can I just say, Tim, I'm worried about it because I bet both Mobley and Allen to have 2+ blocks today, along with like several other bets that Jared Allen double-double. My best bet of the day, which we didn't get a chance to give out because it was a goofy time today, was Cavs win the first quarter. Cavs win the game was like -105. I thought that was a great bet because I thought they would come out super hot, and they did, but it only lasted about the first 6 or 7 minutes. But yeah, sorry to interrupt you. I just want to say I'm very concerned about the lack of shot selection or shot blocking because it cost me money today.
Yeah, and we've all been there, for sure. 29% from three. Just an abnormal Cavs offensive game where, like you said, other than the third quarter, I didn't think the defense was really bad today. And I think that just, most games we go in there and they're shooting 36% as a team, and we feel pretty good about them. But, the abnormal bad game for Mitchell, which was kind of shocking. Realistically, the only guys who really kind of had really nice statistic games were Mobley and Garland.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the thing that jumps out. But I think too, Karis LeVert coming back, getting his first action. You and I kind of talked about this off air. Just kind of looks like he was still kind of getting back in the swing of things, getting his legs underneath them. Looks like he was kind of still gingerly testing the knee out in a few circumstances. I feel like that's something where that might take him a couple of games to get back on track.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't tell if it was rust or the knee, but it seemed like he was moving around gingerly, especially in the first quarter. Got a little bit better when he came in the third quarter and hit a few shots that at the time when the Cavs were trying to get back in the game. But still a little bit worried about Karis. I'd like to see him moving a little bit more fluidly and looking like himself. I thought he didn't look like himself today.
Yeah, I agree. And Ty Jerome, I think, had like 3 shots today. So that's kind of surprising. On the other end, I think it's just Atlanta was really good for a couple days. And I don't think this is going to make me completely change my thoughts on the season. I saw some of the social people out there saying, was the first run of the year a fluke? No, it was not a fluke. Just bad couple games. Cavaliers seem to always struggle with the Hawks. I don't know what it is. But I just wasn't their day, man. And you kind of at some point you got to tip your hat to the opponent. You could be frustrated and disappointed for how things went for your team, but and it pains us. I mean, we talked about the other night. It pains us to give credit to a Trae Young team. But you kind of have to today because he was 21-11. But really this game was won by guys like Jalen Johnson and Zachary Richeche and DeAndre Hunter. Those were kind of the guys that kind of did their thing today to kind of lead Atlanta to victory.
Yeah, I completely agree. And we'll circle back around to Mitchell because this is, I don't even know if it's arguably maybe his worst game of the year today, at least offensively shooting the ball. He actually contributed quite a bit in rebounding and playmaking. But this kind of, we talked before the season that the Cavs' weakest point was like on the wings, and in particularly matching up with other teams' wings, defensively. And that ended up not being very true for the first 15, 16 games of the year. And then it's been true a few times lately against Boston and these 2 games against the Hawks, where DeAndre Hunter, Jalen Johnson, you just mentioned, are perfect examples of 6'8", 6'9", very athletic guys who are almost like a guard forward hybrid, the type of player the Cavs don't really have a lot of, or at least play a lot of. Maybe one day Jalen Tyson would get in that mix, but it is a little bit worrisome to see guys like that start going off on the Cavs, because for me personally, because I thought that would be kind of their weakness coming into the season, and thought I was being pleasantly surprised that I was wrong. And now it's kind of turned its ugly head here a few times recently.
Yeah, especially when you look at Tatum and Brown coming to town on Sunday and Porzingis is back. Not really what you want to see in that case there. Yeah, I agree with you. I think that when you and I think that's something that they're really going to try to figure out the alternative route, especially in the East, because of those guys. If Boston's your measuring stick, the team that we've kind of compared them to all year, and you go out there and you get kind of beat by, no disrespect to these guys who are not Tatum and Brown the way they did, then you have to really kind of kind of look yourself in the mirror and they kind of reflect there. I don't really think that I'm trying to figure out the best way to put this, and maybe I'm just kind of talking. Maybe I'm just kind of rambling, but I'm not overtly concerned. I know that it was a disappointing day. I know it was a disappointing 2 games in a row against a team that you probably feel like you're better than, and on paper you're better than. But we talked about this even during the run. You said, like, look, like there's going to be stretches where they lose a couple games in a row and they're not going to look very good. It's the NBA. This happens. We are still talking about a team that is 17-3 through 20 games through a fourth of the year. They're still in very good shape. And I know the schedule's not great coming up with teams like Boston and Denver. But I feel okay. I didn't think today was very good. Obviously it was very disappointing. I still think they're going to be all right. And like, we're going to get to Mitchell here in a second. And just kind of talk about probably just his worst game. That's not who Mitchell is. And we all know that. And we know what this team's capable of. Shots weren't falling. They weren't getting as many turnovers in the second half as they did in the first half, which really contributed. And Atlanta hit shots. And freaking Bojan Bogdanovic driving me crazy every time they play against them, whether it's America or my team.
He's just a winning player, man. He is. And and I'll tell you, and Mitchell, sure, everything we said is true about reasons to lose today. Like, other than the bench, the other thing I wrote down is Capella and Okongwu basically played Allen and Mobley to a stalemate.
Yeah.
That can't happen in those matchups. Like, Mobley and Allen have to be better than those two. And I did find it interesting that they cut Jared Allen's minutes, especially in the second half. I kept looking like, is he in foul trouble? Like, what's going on? And he really wasn't. And I think Kenny Atkinson just kind of went away from him, was trying different things. Like, it's surprising to see Jared Allen only play 25 minutes, Okoro play 18, and then Niang played 20, Merrill played 20, LeVert played 20 in his first game back, kind of, when he didn't look his best. So, and I'm not saying that was wrong. I think the game was going so poorly for a lot of it that they were experimenting with different things. And that's never a good sign. It means you're kind of grasping at straws trying to figure out another team.
Yeah, especially when you mentioned Okoro, because he was your best option against Trae Young today.
Yeah.
I thought when he was man to man with him, I thought he was really, really good.
Yeah.
I thought that was, he was definitely your best chance to stop him in this game for sure. And it seems like they kind of, and we've talked about this as a trend the last couple of days, and this kind of goes down to further down the road, what happens when you do get Max Strus back, and how does this look for sure? And we have no idea what that is. Like we talked about, there's been no, he's doing this, or this, besides, I think, a little here and there, but I'm really curious to see how that's going to look for Okoro when he returns. Yeah. And now that Karras is back. So that'll be a conversation for a few weeks.
Yeah.
Let's get to Mitchell, because just surprising, and not in a way where I'm like discouraged by him or disappointed. Just sometimes guys have bad games, and you thought with kind of this game meaning so much, he himself talking about, we really want to go to Vegas. We know what Friday means. You thought he'd be sharper, and could just be he wasn't hitting, his shots weren't falling. Like I said, the greats go through those games, but I don't suspect that this is a trend. This isn't something I'm deeply concerned about, but it does have to be acknowledged that, it wasn't his best day.
I agree with you. I'm not super concerned about it. That said, he was forcing today. Like, you could see there's been games where his shot hasn't been falling and he's just contributed in other ways. And today his shot wasn't falling. He kept kind of forcing it, like a lot of like off balance shots, opposed to turning more into like a playmaker and setting up other guys. Like, he took 20, he was 5 for 23, and it's just, it kind of goes back to the overall team had kind of poor shot selection. And that was, you talked about the difference in assist numbers. I thought that was a really good call out by you. Yes, that's a product of not making shots, but it's also a product of, I thought the Cavs did more one-on-one today than they typically do. I thought they ran their offense, but then their offense ended up stagnating to someone going one-on-one late in the clock. And that a lot of times was Mitchell. I think the only guy who was successful doing that really was Mobley. He had some very, very nice moves, but otherwise, yeah, I mean, just a bad game. Like, no matter how good your player is, how good a player is, they're going to have some bad games. This is definitely a bad one for Mitchell. And we should call out Dyson Daniels maybe turning the best perimeter defender in the league.
Yeah,
and
he's looked
certainly
really
had a lot to do with it. Like his defensive rating, I thought I saw like the gap between him and number 2 is the same gap that is between number 2 and number 10. Like that's how good of a defender he has been this year. So certainly not a coincidence that Mitchell would have such a bad game being matched up against him.
Yeah, I suspect Mitchell's going to be very excited to get back on the court on Sunday at the Rock against the Celtics to avenge one of their 3 losses. I think he's going to probably play his best game. I'm excited to see how he responds. Let's talk about a couple positives. There's a few. You mentioned Mobley. I think another day where, I do think Okongwu, and I do think that you kind of got the better of him, but statistically 24 and 12, 10 and 17 from the floor. You'll take that day from him. You always obviously want to see more. He didn't knock down his 2 3-point attempts, but I'm not too worried about them. I'm just happy he's taking them. He wasn't as much of a ferocious defender as far as protecting the paint, protecting the rim, but once again on offense, looked at stretches in this game where he looked unstoppable. And I talked about it the other day. I said it today on Blue Sky during the game. I'm running everything through him in these games. I'm seeing if he can win me the game. And I feel like they kind of got away from that today, but I'm very, very pleased to see him continue to make these strides.
Yeah, no doubt about it. He was really good again today. He's catapult. He's taking, I don't know what's bigger than a leap. I was going to say like a catapult this year.
Yeah.
Like, absolutely phenomenal once again. Yes, didn't have quite the impact on the defensive end, which is a little bit frustrating. And not to nitpick, but one thing I'd really like to start seeing from Mobley is him getting to the foul line a little bit more. I think he's getting to the line like 4 point something times a game. I think he's a guy that should be getting the line 8+ times a game the way he plays. I think maybe a little bit of that. Like, again, this is nitpicking because the guy has been phenomenal. He is an all-star. He is probably an all-NBA guy if they were handing him out today. So again, nitpicking, but I guess maybe just the next step of his evolution. I want to see him being a guy that forces the action to enough and to your point, run the offense through him enough that he's ended up at the free throw line 8+ times a game.
Yeah, and I know that's hard
really
to do.
Shooter too. Yeah, and but that's what like the best players in the league get to the line that much, and that's his next step. Like I said, he is, just rocketing toward that ceiling of like a Tim Duncan light, right? And I think that's one of the next things for him to do is run, like you said, run the offense through him primarily, and him forcing the action enough, and frankly, maybe starting to get the respect of the officials enough to start going to the line 8+ times a game.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll take that. And then Garland again today. Tremendous. Really, really good. I know he got pulled with a couple minutes ago, but we've talked about this all year with him, and it hasn't changed. This is what we're getting from him right now is tremendous, and it's been so fun. So today, 29 and 5, shot the ball really well. Was 5 of 8 from 3. I know it's not the guy you probably want as the point of attack with Trae Young having the ball in his hands, but I didn't think he played bad defensively against Trae Young. I thought Okoro was obviously the better matchup. But another 25+ point game for him. You can see just kind of him kind of being comfortable, and that's only going to help this team moving forward. So nice game for him today. I know it didn't result in the win, and I know they did lose by 16, but have to make sure we got to tip our cap to him because I thought this was a tremendous Darius Garland game.
Yeah, he was really good, and he was good from the jump. I think he had like 8 points in the first few minutes of the game, something like that. And so he came out kind of how you expected the whole team to come out, like really, really, firing with, what did Skylar call it, piss and vinegar or something?
Yeah, I like that.
And so yeah, he was like that, and then he was steady the whole game. Very, very good game offensively from Darius, but yeah, unfortunately, not enough. And the one other thing, and I promised him, this is my last negative. We'll find some positive to end it.
This is part of the job. This is what we do.
Yeah. One frustration: Jared Allen only 3 shot attempts tonight.
I know,
and we talked about that the other night. That him and Mobley being that's the best mismatch for them against the Hawks. Is they should eat inside against those two, and for him to only get, and he was 3 for 3 on the shots he did get, but there wasn't nearly as much of that. There was still the penetration, but not the penetration and dump offs to Allen. I think like 2 of his shots were actually off of traditional post ups. If I remember, I remember he had a really nice left-handed hook that I didn't even know he had in his bag. But that was definitely what was missing. Probably the last 2 nights is the penetration that Garland, Mitchell, and some others get, and then the dump offs to Allen and Mobley. Not nearly as many of them these last couple games as there was previously.
Yeah, for sure. But hey, big picture, you don't play Atlanta again for a little while. You only have them in one more time this regular season. You're still 17-3 through the first 20 games. You're still the number 1 seed in the East. You're just not going to Vegas, and you can live with that. So I'm pretty happy. I think we know where this team's going to be because as we kind of go through the year, we're going to be all right. So big picture for you, 20 games in. I mean, obviously 17-3 is terrific. Yep. And I know the defense has slipped a little bit. We talked about that the other day that we're kind of monitoring that. But how do you feel now 20 games in, what we've seen from this team so far?
You can't be upset. Like the team is phenomenal. Like it stinks that they lost 2 games in a row, especially to Trae Young. But like, again, if you told us before the season, we're sitting at 17-3 doing a 20 game review. I mean, you take that all day. So you're incredibly encouraged. Like, I think the biggest reason for encouragement, honestly, we joke about like TJ Maxx in the bench, but like the biggest thing is all 4 of the main guys in the team are playing well and playing well together for the most part. And while they were all very good players coming this season, they didn't play as well together, as complementary together up until this season. And I think they're doing that much more. I think that's the number 1 sign for positive takeaway. And the other positive is they're still the best offensive team in the league. At least coming in today, they were the best offensive team in the league. And we wouldn't have expected that. We'd expected them to be in the top, maybe 6 to 10, but not number 1. I don't think, if we were being honest with ourselves.
For sure.
So they have the best offense in the league. Their best 4 guys are humming and playing together, and they're getting complimentary stuff from everywhere. And the biggest thing, I guess, moving forward is like, can they show consistency? Not 17-3 or 17-1 consistency type thing, but like, I think the one big thing, you said this on previous pods, is this is a team that shouldn't have a 5, 6, 7 game losing streak, right? Well, they're at 2 now, and they got Boston, so there's a decent possibility it could be a 3. Stop it right there. Stop it in Boston. Stop it against Boston Sunday, preferably, but like make sure a 2-game streak doesn't turn into a 5-game streak, and then all of a sudden they fall from comfortably in first in the East to now they're more in the 3-4 range. So that's the biggest thing I'm looking at. I'm still super positive after 20 games.
Me too.
And then going forward, I just want to see kind of like the consistency through the adversity that they're facing right now.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if we had came on here and we said, where do you think they're going to start 14-6? I think we'd have been really happy, but 17-3 is, it's perfect nearly. So it's a really, really good start to the year. I'm with you. I think that at some point, I think they'll put their foot down and just make sure it doesn't keep going. If it's not Boston, you got the Wizards on Tuesday, and you got the Nuggets on Thursday. But 17-3 is still pretty awesome. And I think we should really enjoy this instead of questioning if it was a legit start to the year, because it was. They're a very good basketball team. Everything's going to be okay.
They're a very good basketball team. They're just not a perfect basketball team. And if we're like, we're being on, they were perfect for a while, but they have a few warts. They have a lot more roses than warts, but they have a few warts that are showing up. And honestly, maybe Atlanta specifically like found a different way to attack Cleveland that other teams hadn't. And now how do they respond? You know, this is on, we have given Kenny Atkinson all kinds of flowers. This is everybody. He's been incredible. But now this is a new test or the first time he's truly I wouldn't say it was adversity after he lost to Boston. Now this is their first true adversity this season. How do they respond? How do they adjust and move forward and hopefully, you know, right the ship quickly, get back to whether it's a winning streak or winning 4 of 5 or something like that and keep this thing rolling.
Yeah, I mean, they win Sunday somehow, then all this we're talking about, this frustration goes away because they beat the Celtics. Talking about that game, obviously, second matchup with them, first one, Boston got the best of them, but the Cavs make that huge comeback and almost take away. A couple differences now. One, obviously, that Porzingis is back. Two, the Cavs are a little less healthy. Actually, no, they're healthier because they have Okoro. Those guys, like they didn't have Okoro the last game,
right?
So, your thoughts on the rematch of that one? Obviously, the two best teams in the East, potentially the two best teams in the NBA. What are your thoughts on that going into the Celtics game on Sunday?
I mean, great test. Obviously, Boston. Like I said, I said this on the previous podcast. I want to play him again with Porzingis because I'm really interested to see how this rapidly improving Mobley and a little bit lesser extent Allen matches up with Boston's best. I still think even with Porzingis, I still think the Cavs have an advantage on the inside. The Cavs or the Celtics obviously have an advantage on the wing. I mean, because Tatum and Brown are two of the best 5 players in the league or 10 players in the league, whatever it is. Like, you gotta be honest with ourselves there. But I still think with the Celtics at their best, the Cavs can be a really good matchup for them to where it's still a coin flip. I still think Boston's great. Boston, they're just as good as last year. So you have to kind of, you know, give them that and say they're the team to beat. But I think the Cavs are the best team, at least in the Eastern Conference, in the position to beat them.
I do too. And I think that this is going to be a really fun Sunday game. You know, you go win that one, everyone feels happy. And I think that's all really people really care about. They can deal with 2 losses to the Hawks if you beat the Celtics. I do think the Celtics are the best team in the NBA. And I'm not sure how close it necessarily is. But I think if anyone's close to them, it's Cavs. So I'm really excited to see this matchup. I'm really excited to see Okoro back in this game, since he wasn't in the first Boston game, to have that guy to guard Tatum. That's, you know, he's kind of picked up that gig of being the guy who guards the toughest person on the other side of the ball. So excited to see how that goes.
I actually wouldn't be surprised if they put Okoro on Brown, to be honest. I think
really, that's fair.
I think Tatum might have a little too much size for Okoro, if I'm being honest. And I actually think they'll probably put Mobley on Tatum. I can see that. You're probably right. Yeah. And but you know, those are your 2 best defenders and I think they match up fairly. They match up as well as you can against Brown and Tatum from a defensive standpoint. Both those guys are awesome and they're going to get their points and everything. But I think Okoro and Mobley are the type of defenders that can make it tough on them.
Yeah, if you could just keep the Celtics from raining 3s again, I like your chances. So
yeah, and the thing with the Celtics, in my opinion, is you can't let anyone outside of those 2 guys beat you. Like, right. Like honestly, Tatum and Brown are awesome, and they're going to get 50+ points combined most games. Right? Derek White was the one who killed the Cavs in that first game. Yeah, Derek White was phenomenal overall and hit a lot of the big shots, you know, down the stretch when it was still a close game. You can't let him go off. Porzingis, you know, Holiday, any of the other guys that they pull off the bench. Like, you got to keep the rest of that team in fairly in check because you know Tatum and Brown are gonna get theirs.
Yeah, I'm really gonna be annoyed when Peyton Pritchard hits some 39-footer. That's just gonna drive me crazy.
That's like Trae Young level annoying.
Yes, it really is. But yeah, so we got Sunday, we got the Celtics. Let's bounce back. Let's get the dub. Let's enjoy it. But with that being said, I think we'll go ahead and wrap up this edition of the Block the Shot to Stop. Thank you guys for tuning in. Whether it's Friday afternoon, you're hanging out with us, or you're checking out the audio feed later in the day after you get off work on your way home. We definitely appreciate it. Please be sure, as always, to subscribe to us on YouTube if you haven't already, or your podcast app of choice, and leave a nice review for us. It really means a lot. Sunday, we will be back. I think it's going to be Kevin and Skylar holding it down, recapping the Cavs Celtics game. So cannot wait to see the response to that. Hopefully they're talking about a Celtics win. I mean, a win against the Celtics.
Come on.
I meant to say a win against the Celtics. No, I definitely never want to see the Celtics win. Anyone who knows me knows that case. But on behalf of Kevin Lynch, this is Tim Daniel and Skylar Webker. Have a good one, and we'll see you Sunday.
Go Cavs.